Hello, welcome to When the Smoke Clears. I am the Recovery Plug. How's it going, everybody? I hope you guys are doing great. Yeah, man, it's another great day, right? So check this out, if you would, please. I always like to get my videos started out with a moment of silence, followed by the serenity prayer for the addicts, who suffers, and for those of us who are still bound down to some sort of adversity, some sort of struggle that keeps us bound down through this toxic world that we live in. So yeah, if you would, please join me in a moment of silence. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference. All right. Well, now that we got that squared away, we're going to dig in, man. Well, check this out. Today, I wanted to talk to you guys about something, that was kind of, it was brought up in a few of the meetings that I attended here the last couple of weeks. And it's compassion. The word compassion, and what I want to do is I want to talk about the word compassion in a just dig into it as far as what it means and what it means in the world of recovery. I'm gonna go that avenue with it. You know what I mean? Because again, compassion's. I mean, it can be, distributed in quite a few subjects, genres, whatever, right? And but what we want to focus on is how and what it means in the sense of recovery. And so what I want to do is I'm gonna just read something. I'm gonna pull something up here real quick, and let me just switch these out with these old glasses here so we can actually read what I'm fixing to talk to you about. And I'm just pulling this up. This is just a random pull up off of the net, and it's from the Merriam-Webster site. And this says it has compassion and empathy in the same thing, and they're kind of like giving you the difference between one and the other, and how they correlate, right? And it says here that compassion and empathy both refer to a caring response to someone else's distress. While empathy refers to an active sharing in an emotional experience of the other person, compassion adds to the emotional experience a desire to alleviate the person's distress. And I found that really, I liked it. You know what I mean? When I read that, I was like, you know what? This definition correlates perfectly with compassion in the context of recovery. And what I'm gonna do here is let me pull something else up. I wanted to kind of touch base also through this other thing. And where are you at? Okay, right here. Got it. Okay, and I'm going to read you another thing that I pulled up off of another web page, and then I'll go into my own personal opinions and how I believed it helps me, and how I believe it works in the realm of recovery. You know what I mean? So right here, and this is coming from Anatonianofmoms.com, right? And this says, the power of compassion in the recovery process. Recovery from addiction is a deeply personal and often difficult journey. It challenges the mind, body, and spirit. For many, the path can feel lonely or overwhelming. It also says that while clinical strategies like therapy, medication-assisted treatment, and other structured programs are vital, one element is often underestimated, and that's compassion. And whether it comes from a professional, family member, or from within, compassion has the power to transform the recovery experience in profound ways. And it also, compassion is more than just kindness. It's an active desire to relieve suffering and support others through their pain. In the context of addiction recovery, it can serve as a stabilizing force. When people in recovery are met with empathy rather than judgment, they're more likely to open up, stay committed to treatment, and believe in their capacity for change. This approach doesn't mean ignoring responsibilities or consequences. Instead, it emphasizes understanding the roots of addiction, trauma, mental illness, health struggles, or other underlying issues while promoting healing and growth. Compassion shifts from focus, from blame to support, which can make the difference in someone's motivation to continue their recovery journey. And, it says one of the biggest barriers to recovery is shame. People struggling with addiction often feel a deep guilt about their behavior and its impact to others when they're met with criticism, stigma. This shame can intensify, leading to relapse or withdrawal from a treatment center altogether, or from any treatment, for that matter. And compassion helps counter this by creating a space where individuals feel seen, heard, and valued regardless of their past. And I'm just going to leave it at that and kind of go into that, you know what I mean? And, that to me, the compassion, it's an action word, right? To me, it's something that makes you want to do something. You know what I mean? I believe that compassion is a natural thing that's connected to our biological system, right? How the body works, how the mind works. And I think it's a natural reaction to show compassion in any sense, because basically what you're doing when you're showing compassion is that you're trying to alleviate suffering, right? You don't want yourself to suffer, you don't want to feel pain, and you also don't want someone else to feel that. So I could, and I believe that when somebody's showing compassion, it's generating dopamine in your system, because dopamine is that part of your system that shoots out this whatever dopamine is, you know what I mean? Bam, it's into your system, and it makes you want to go get something. It makes you move, you know what I mean? That's what the dopamine is, and it gets you in this go get it mode. So compassion is just exactly that. You're naturally trying to find an alleviation for some type of suffering, either for yourself or for somebody else. And it is it's a key part of the recovery process. You know what I mean? Not only is it a key part in one's personal yourself, but also if you're that person trying to help someone else. You know what I mean? And it is compassion. You got to kind of be careful with it if you're the person that's in the addiction, because what compassion does a lot to the addictive person, or the person that's struggling with whatever it is, whatever adversity it is, right? If you're usually when you're dealing with any type of grief or addiction or depression or anxiety, stress, a lot of people, when their compassion to help somebody else heightens up. You know what I'm saying? But for themselves personally, it goes way low. Like they'd rather suffer they'd rather be the one suffering than someone else. And in the addiction mode, when you're in that realm of darkness, you tend to gravitate to doing things that aren't that aren't good, right? And in turn, it's like you're pouring more fuel into this fire of oneself, and the flame can rage so high that sometimes it's impossible to put it out. You know what I mean? It could get like that, and showing compassion and practicing compassion in your own life, in your yourself, because ultimately the flame that you're trying to tame down is the flame from within, right? It's that feeling that you have that's making your life miserable, right? And when I say that, I'm talking about the loss of someone, the trauma that you've gone through, the depression, the anxiety, the stress, all of that stuff, and that when you're practicing less compassion, you're adding fuel to all of those things. You know what I mean? So less compassion means that you're imprisoning yourself, for a longer period of time, and sometimes that cloud of smoke, man, can get so thick and so wide that, man, it doesn't matter which way you look, you don't see any light. You know what I mean? And I've been there. You know what I mean? I've been in there. I've had days, that were like that. But you know what? That the good thing about our lives as human beings is that they're lives of cycles, right? Their lives of seasons, their lives of living and dying, and the things that you're going through, that adversity that you're going through, at one point is going to die out. You know what I mean? And how you are equipped mentally and perhaps physically is going to determine the outcome of that point. You know what I mean? And because I personally have witnessed people who weren't able to make it out. You know what I mean? I've witnessed people who it was their last day. You know what I mean? And then I've also witnessed people come out and go back into the smoke. You know what I mean? I've also watched that, and I'm one of those who had climbed out of that smoky realm, and then have just wound up back in there, and it wasn't by no means is it any good. It never gets better every time you go back. You know what I mean? But like I said, it's not being blinded and not working on that compassion. It can be detrimental because I can remember myself personally when I relapsed the last time and went back into the addiction. It was harder for me to feel that compassion. It was harder for me to say, hey, you know what? Let's get up and get out of here and move on. You know what I'm saying? Because it every time you go back, it's worse. The feelings are worse. The intensity is worse. You know what I mean? And the use of the drugs or whatever, it's never better. You know what I mean? That's even worse. You know what I'm saying? Because it doesn't feel like the very first time you did it. You know what I mean? So you're here on this deal, but at that point, this is just me personally. At that point, I didn't care about the feeling. I was doing it more so just to beat myself up. You know what I mean? Because I didn't want to show compassion for myself, because that's like, dude, you failed, man. You failed. You failed. You lost your business. You lost your family. You failed, and that was a devastating blow. You know what I mean? And that to me was one of the hardest things that I've ever had to crawl out of, man. You know what I mean? It really, really was. You know what I mean? Because I just I felt, I was disappointed. I felt, just this sense of shame, this sense of guilt, this sense of I failed my kids. You know what I mean? And myself. You know what I mean? And then I just just a snowball effect. You know what I mean? What are people gonna think that I used to have this business. Now I don't have nothing. I'm out in the street. I'm homeless, and just it just the stuff just starts piling up. You know what I mean? And compassion starts fading away. You know what I mean? And you know, luckily for me, and I'm grateful for this, that I was able to have that spiritual awakening, if you will. You know what I mean? And 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 I'm grateful that it didn't get any further than it needed to be. That I was able to see and feel this awakening of some sort. You know what I mean? And it's hard to explain, but it was just this. It was just a sense of it was like giving up, but not giving up. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody, but because it wasn't like I was giving up on life. Like I wasn't gonna give up, but not like I wanted to die, give up. But it was just like, you know what? I give up trying to control what's happening here in my life. I'm not gonna. I'm giving up control, and because every choice that I'm making is putting me deeper and deeper into this this pit of misery, right? And it was kind of it was just something, you know what I mean? For me, it was just something. One day, man, it just came, it just hit me, and it just, I can remember that day. I was just sitting in a park one day, and just that day just hit me hard, and I I remember crying out that day, and it was it was tough, you know what I mean, and tough because I was accustomed to this lifestyle, and I've been involved in drugs and alcohol since I was in the first grade. Man, it was the first time that I indulged. You know what I mean? And throughout my life, periodically, it just like it consumed me, and it was just that day, man. It's just I can remember it distinctly, and I don't know what it was, but I'm glad that it happened. You know what I mean? I'm glad that whatever, it felt like an energy to me. You know what I mean? It was something that came from within myself. To be honest with you, it was something that I felt, this energy that came from within me, that just kind of moved something in my mind, like this curtain out of like my mind, in a sense, like, hey, okay, we're here, let's do this. And after that day, man, I picked up a spiritual path, and haven't looked back. You know what I mean? And I'm grateful to say that I haven't used since that day, and that my life is transformed in a 360-degree change, and that's because I decided to show some compassion for myself and for the other people that I was with. You know what I mean? Because I was like, look, I care about you so much that I got to do this for me. And I'd like for you to come with me, but if you don't feel the same way, then I still got to go. And I just hope that one day you decide to do the same. And it was a tough road, man. It was a tough road. You know what I mean? It was a depressing road, and but I knew in my heart and my soul that I had to take that path. And then things just started popping right in front of right in that journey. You know what I mean? Just people that would just drop into my life. You know, and and uh, and people with information that I needed. You know what I mean? And ultimately, that is the thing. You know what I mean? Is that we live our lives through the information of somebody else, through other people's thought processes. How we live our lives, man. And I'm grateful that my energies and my connection to that divine energy has, it's like a magnet. You know what I mean? That divine energy, when you're connected to that divine energy, and you got to get your frequencies just right, man. And when they are, and you're connected to that divine energy, it's like a magnet. If it moves, you move. You know what I mean? And it's moving you. And that's the beauty of compassion, allowing yourself to get alleviated from that suffering through that energy. And that's where I knew. I was like, wow, how couldn't I see this before? You know what I mean? I think, why wasn't I able to see it before? What the heck? Why did it take me this long for me to see that? And that's beautiful to me, man. Is that when I understood that and saw that energy at work in myself, I was like, wow. I mean, the abilities of what can happen in your life when you allow that energy to move you. And you'll be amazed. And this is a true story, man. That thing moves you. I don't know how it does it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. And I don't know the whole, quantum theoretical theories about any of that stuff. But what I do know is it works. You know what I mean? I do know that it works. When you connect yourself with the proper channels, when you connect yourself, when you get your frequency in tune with that frequency, whew, man, it's like you can, because with those frequencies, it's a sound wave, right? And it travels. There's no ending to that. You know what I'm saying? So when you connect to that, your energy now is traveling with that energy, and you're everywhere. You know what I mean? And that's the cool thing, is that I feel connected energetically through that divine energy, through that divine matrix with everybody. And I feel it. You know what I mean? I feel it. I feel hurt when people are hurting. When I hear people's messages in the meetings, man, I hurt for them and I want to help them. And, when I hear my kids, I hurt when they tell me they're whatever's going on or whatever, in the family. I feel the hurt and I want to alleviate the hurt, but you can only do so much. And by me projecting my spiritual energies, and anybody who comes in contact with me will feel it. You know what I mean? Because I'm practicing it. This is something that is not just a one-time thing for me. This is something that I repetitively do all day long. Everything that I do in my life today involves being compassionate, being mindful, involving being connected to that energy. Because I know that when I'm connected with that energy, it leads me the right way. And it allows me to translate things, just like when I do my video podcast. I don't just get up here and just automatically just do it. I meditate on it. You know what I mean? I meditate on it and ask my energies what it needs me to talk about. And today was this. You know what I mean? And every time, it always takes me back to some part of my life. and where connect to it. You know what I mean? And so I'm grateful. You know what I mean? I'm grateful that I'm able to sit here and share a message of compassion with somebody who may not know how that is, or how to use it in their life. You know what I mean? And it's because a lot of people are afraid of compassion, because a compassion means that you have to be vulnerable, that you have to let some walls down, that you're gonna have to feel love, and a lot of people don't like that feeling of love. They feel like, whoa, 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 hold up, you know what I mean? Because they're afraid of it. It's fearful for people, and but that's the whole process of doing things in recovery content, that it's something that you got to do every day. You have to do this on a daily basis. This is just not some, read one book and you're good thing. You know what I mean? Or anything like that. You do one step and you're good, or attend one meeting and yeah, you're great. Or no. By no means is it like that. It's a process, man. It's a process of being active in that realm. You know what I mean? It's not for the lazy. You have to do things. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. And but it's great. You know what I mean? To me, it's been a beautiful journey. It didn't start out like that. You know what I mean? It didn't start out like that because I didn't want no part of it at first, because I was still in the addictive mode. You know what I mean? I still wanted to be in that world, and I was fighting. I had this tug of war going on, but it's just a mental thought process. You have to change that mental thought process, and it has to be a 360-degree change. This is not something that you can just change a quarter of your mental thought process and it's going to be good. No, it has to be all the way. You have to reprogram yourself all the way. It's just like getting the new windows of your of your body. You know what I mean? Of your system, in your own personal life. You have to you have to download the latest version. You know what I mean? The latest version to have a beautiful life. And how cool is it that we get to do that? You know what I mean? We have the ability to do that. You and me as human beings, we have the ability to hit that reset button at any time we want and start new. You know what I mean? That's a beautiful thing to me. There's no other species in this planet that has the ability to do that, man. How great is that? You know what I mean? Your life is going like crap, and at any time you can just boom, say, you know what? It's not going to go like that anymore, because I decide that I'm going to change this, because I have the ability to change my mental thought process to go a different way. You know what I mean? That's the beauty of it. But it's a process, and it takes time, and it takes work. You know what I mean? So just be aware of that it's not something that is going to happen overnight, but it's something that can happen and can be attained. You know what I mean? And I'm living proof. So at any rate, man, I just I wanted to speak on that today, and just hopefully that it helps somebody. The spirits were telling me to talk about that, so that's what I did. And I'm grateful that you guys were able to listen and to hopefully take something from this. You know what I mean? And yeah, so if you would, please, man, at this time, give me a thumbs up, man. Hit the subscribe button, hit that bell, leave me a comment. I'd greatly appreciate that. And just know that when you do hit that subscribe button, it doesn't cost you a thing, but you will be helping out another veteran, another homeless person, another person dealing with PTSDs, childhood traumatic experiences, depression, drug addiction, alcoholism, suicidal thoughts, anger issues, sadness, depression, all those types of things, my friends, because I have dealt with all of those things at one point in time in my life. And guess what, man? I know a way out, and my way out could be your way out. So I guess until the next time, man, on When the Smoke Clears, I am the Recovery Plug.